you go. Hi, everyone. I'm Molly Knight Ford from the Awareness School. And I thought it might be a good idea to talk to a few students from the Practical Awareness course so you can get an idea of what you might be getting into and how it's helped people, and just let people tell their story about this. So this is Steph Burton.
Hi, guys.
And Steph, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me about the course.
You're welcome.
I'd love for you to talk about your experience. Just let's get right into it so we don't take too long.
Well, my experience with the course was so transformative that I've had a hard time putting it into words, so I'm going to try. The beginning of the class, I felt very much like I didn't really know if I needed it. I thought the first few weeks, I felt like, I already know how to do these things. These are such simple exercises. And, I've already learned this. And because I'd studied and I'd read books and I'd worked with other teachers, and I'd learned meditations and this and that. And so I really felt like the content, I wasn't sure what to expect. And it really wasn't until about maybe the second, third, fourth week that I started to realize that I actually didn't know these things, and that they seemed quite basic, and that I had thought that I'd learned them, but that they hadn't been taught to me in this way before. And the tools are presented concisely for a reason. And you get the first week's, homework for a reason. You're building something. And it takes a couple weeks to understand that not only are you building something, but that you're opening something up in a new way inside of you that is incredibly hard to explain if you don't know that you don't know it.
Right. You only know till you know. Right. Right.
And that's really been, I think, one of the greatest teachings about working with you is understanding that about myself, that it's okay to not know things. It's okay to learn. It's okay to unlearn. And the gift of that knowledge, of just that awareness about my life, has allowed me to transform. Because, if you think about transformation, you have this sort of cycles of life and death, if you will, of destruction and recreation. Well, you have to let something die off first before something else can come in. And that includes you thinking you know everything.
Right. Well, it certainly does help, but we never think that we need this. I didn't think it either when I first started learning this. And once you get into it, because these are modules having to do with attention and self-observation, we often think, I know how to observe myself. But until you realize that, no, I'm not asking for your thinking to watch your thinking, that it's something much, much more.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's very cultural for us. We work in the intellect as a society, and we are very, very heavily dependent on thinking. It's how we go to school for how many years of our lifetime. We learn to read books. We learn to do math problems. We learn how to do all of this stuff through our brains, and that's wonderful. But there's other pieces to the self that have been, long forgotten and ignored by our culture. And so we have to relearn these things. And sacred teachings may be the only way to do that I've discovered, because it's something that's passed on through a knowing.
Yeah.
It comes from somewhere else. It doesn't come through the thinking. So that was quite shocking for me to realize how much I was in my own way with that.
Yes. Also, you mentioned something about homework, and I keep telling people, it's not going to consume your time. It's not like you're writing out papers or doing any of the kind of learning,
right?
Like Steph just
said. It's not
an
intellectual homework
at all.
No.
So, each week you're doing things out and about in life and coming back and bringing back observations. So part of it is also learning what observations are. They're not analysis, they're not memory and associations, and that's part of the fun is having everybody come back and realize, oh yeah, I don't know if I'm observing or not. Or
well, and you'll know, I mean, I think as you go along through the course, you start to understand and know when you actually have an observation versus when you're like racing a class and you're like, oh, I got to collect a list of observations I had so I can have something to show Molly or my fellow students. It's different than that. It's like you have awakenings. So when you come to class, you're like, oh my gosh, something happened to me this week. That's the homework. So it's like the homework is to awaken your soul, and it's much bigger and greater of an experience. And that's when it starts to catch on and you're like, wow, I really want to do this. Like I'm really getting something from this that's powerful and that's changing the way that I'm, kind of being in the world and looking at stuff. So, well,
that's a good segue into, how have you benefited, and why would you recommend this to someone else?
How have I benefited? Well, this class was the sort of opening of, I don't want to say rabbit hole because it sounds like you're going down, but it was an expansive experience to such an extent. I peeled off so many layers of what I thought I knew to uncover something so much greater about myself, my power, my place in the world, my ability to make choices that feel good and right to me. I feel more whole as a woman, as a human being, and yet I've had a lot of loss accompany my transformation. But it's been shedding of the things that I no longer need, so that I can receive the things that I really desire and know I'm meant to have. So instead of I know that so many of the marketing tools out there are like, here, make $1 million in 5 weeks and this and this is like, recreate yourself from the foundation first. Don't try to go to the top of the mountain until you've gone into the rabbit hole first. So dig all that stuff up and really, really set yourself up for success from the baseline, rather than trying to fix everything from the surface. And that's why this course was different for me, because it recreated me from such a fundamental place. This is not surface level stuff. And so for that, I think that if somebody is serious about their inner work, is serious about their own transformation, is ready to take on and to lose whatever needs to be taken on and lost to transform, then this is the class for you.
I agree.
It's huge.
Yeah, everyone is surprised by sort of how profound the transformation starts to be. It is an inside job. I do believe whatever you want to do in life, you have to start with the basic interior and remember who you are.
Yes.
And we're serving up tools to give you a way of knowing how to have attention, knowing how to see inside, so things really can change and stay permanently changed. So I thank you so much. I think this explains to people, it's 8 weeks, there's 8 meetings, there's a ton of content and resources. And
the benefit of getting to stay within the Awareness School, and you get discounts on future offerings. And so, this was love that dog. This is only the beginning. So that's the great part too, is that you start with this class and you just, the tip of the iceberg, you start really uncovering stuff and you're going to go far,
Thank you so much. I think that, from your opinion and your experience, it helps. It's not from my mouth. And I hope everybody will take heed and join up this time. You can take the course again and again.
Yes, that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yay. All right. Thank you for
so
listening.
much.
Thank you.